Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradama Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradama Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Nandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Shivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Shivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Januran Anaya Shoda Nandana Braja Januran Anayamuna Tira Anachari Yamuna Tira Anachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Januran Dana Yashoda Nandana Braja Januran Dana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajanurandana Yashodanandana Brajajanurandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Panachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Ram Vishnupada Prahamsa Parijakacharya Shodashati Sri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. This confounded Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ram Vishnupada Prahamsa Parijakacharya Shodashati Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Granthar Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gopuramanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, The Activities of Maharaj Priyavata, text number 8. So this looks to be prose, so I'm not sure if there's a meter or if there is one, what it is. So I'm just going to wing it a little bit. So tatra ganatala udu patir eva viman valibir anupatam. Are you going to try to repeat? Okay. Amara privridayer abi pujyamana pati pati cha varu tasha siddha Gandharva sadhya charana muni ganer upagi yamano gada madana drodim avapayasam upasasara. So tatra gaganatala udu patiriva vivana velibir anupatam amara parivrider Abi Pujamana Pati Pati Cha Varutasha Siddha Gandharvasadya Charana Muni Gane Upagi Yamano Ganda Madana Dronim Avabayasayan Upasasarpa Satatra Ganatala Udu Patiriva Vimana Valabir Anupatam Amara Par Ivridamer Abhi Pujamana Pati Pati Cha Varutasha Siddha Gandharvasada Charana Muni Gane Upagi Yamano Ganda Madana Dronim Avabayasham Upasasarpa. Do you want to repeat that under Bhakti? Okay. And word for word. Saw. He, Lord Brahma. Tatra Tatra. Here and there. Gaganatale. Under the canopy of the sky. Udupati, the moon. Eva, like. Vimana Ava Libi, in their different airplanes. Anupatam, along the path. Amara, of the demigods. Parivridai, by the leaders. Abhipujamana, being worshipped. Pati Pati, on the way, one after another. Cha, also. Varutasha, in groups. Siddha, by the residents of Siddhaloka. Gandharva, by the residents of Gandharvaloka. Sadhya, by the residents of Sadhyaloka. Charana, by the residents of Charanaloka. Muni Ganai, and by great sages. Upagiyamana, being worshipped. Ganda Madana. Of the planets where the Gandamana hill is found. Dronim, the border. Avabayasan, illuminating. Upasasarpa, he approached. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As Lord Brahma descended on his carrier, the great swan, all the residents of the planets of Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Satyaloka, and Charnaloka, as well as great sages and demigods flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him. As he received respect and adoration from the residents of the various planets, Lord Brahma appeared just like the full moon surrounded by illuminating stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of Gandamandana Hill and approached Prince Priyavata, who was sitting there. Purport. It appears from this description that there is regular interplanetary travel between the planets of the demigods. Another significant point is that there is a hill, or that there's a planet covered mostly by great mountains, one of which is Gandhamadana Hill. Three great personalities, Priyavata, Narada, and Twibunamanu, were sitting on this hill. According to Brahma Samhita, each universe is filled with different planetary systems. And every system has a unique opulence. For example, on Siddhaloka, all the residents are very advanced in the powers of mystic yoga. They can fly from one planet to another without airplanes or other flying machines. Similarly, the residents of Gandharvaloka are experts in musical science, and those on Satyaloka are all great saints. The interplanetary system undoubtedly exists, and residents of different planets may go from one to another. On this Earth, however, we have not invented any machine that can go directly from one planet to another, although an unsuccessful attempt has been made to go directly to the moon. Om Agena Charamandasya, Gyananjana Shlakaya, Chakshmi Tamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Asadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So what we're reading about in this verse, Lord Brahma coming on a great swan or swan-like carrier, surrounded by people from different planets, that some of which have mystic powers, some of which are very expert musicians, some are just great saintly people. He's coming to this particular planet to give instruction. When most modern people read this, they think, oh, this is just mythology. So, oh, this is just some Hindu legend, because people didn't know how the world worked. So they made up these stories with all of these particular details that explain the world. But now, in our modern age, we have science to explain the world. And that has done away with all of the need for mythology. But if one looks at actually the state of science and the process even of it, science relies on its own mythology. there is a scientific mythology, which is different than how it is usually presented, as because I'm sure everybody is aware science is presented as the reasonable or the only logical uh, way of gaining knowledge about the world. And and of course, I'm not uh, anti-science, but I'm anti-scientism. Uh, I don't know if people are familiar with that word, but it's basically more or less the religion made out of science. That's, the idea that science can solve every problem, is the only way of gaining knowledge, and such related uh, ideas. But as I stated, it has the scientific method, the scientific worldview, and even the culture of science has its own mythology. Of course, any system has its own principles that holds to be self-evident, that they take as axiomatic and do not even bother trying to prove. They just hold it as a uh, kind of self self-illuminating or or a foundational belief. For example, in science, one of those is that the laws of nature hold everywhere for all time in the universe. That if you go 1,000 light years away or 1,000,000 light years away, then the laws of nature, the laws of the universe, are the same as they are if I go 1 meter away or where I'm sitting right now. Of course, we don't know this to be true. They haven't, we haven't gone 100 million light years away. The best that we could possibly do is look that far uh, through our telescopes, uh, basically look at the light coming from that long ago. But that doesn't tell us necessarily if the laws of nature are the same there as they are here. The Vedic literature, of course, says that the laws of nature are very different depending on what planet you're on, depending on where on the universe you are. If you are born on one type of planet, you have all sorts of mystic powers and having an extremely long life. If you are born on another type of planet, different rules apply to you. Uh, Likewise, there's uh, even outside of the process of our axioms of scientific reasoning, there's also things that are considered, one could say, axiomatic or mythological or even dogmatic in the culture of science. Things that could be different, but have been accepted so uh, vociferously or so greatly by the practitioners of science that to question it is akin to heresy. One of these things is, of course, evolution. If one questions evolution, one tends to be looked at as if one's not, as if one is some kind of backwards type person or some sort of religious fundamentalist. Uh, when I was in college, I was doing my undergrad. Uh, all the physics majors used to hang out together in kind of the lounge room in the physics building. And of course, sometimes we'd get some other people hanging out in there too. And one time the subjects or came up of evolution, and one of the people there, an engineering student, uh, stated that he did not believe that evolution happened. And not because he's religious or anything, but because he just wasn't convinced by the evidence. And we made fun of him like anything. Uh, because we were totally bought in that, oh, if you are uh, anti-evolution, then you're a science denier. Uh, and, there has to be something wrong with you one way or another. So even though if one looks at the data, if one looks at the actual science, if one uses the scientific method, uh, it's uh, it's actually not so clear cut that evolution happened. You can actually make a very strong case that evolution did not happen, and people have made this case. Some of the current people are Stephen Myers. He wrote a couple of books on it. Of course, Sadaputta Prabhu uh, also wrote several papers and included some arguments in some of his books about the impossibility of evolution coming from the information theory standpoint. Uh, there's so many, and of course, anomalous evidence. Uh, so there's so many uh, ways that one could take this. There's so many reasons why evolution could not be true. Same thing with, as is mentioned in the verse, the moon landing. Uh, the, of course, the moon landing is considered another aspect that if you do not accept, then you're probably some sort of dangerous conspiracy theorist. Uh, I know if you suggest to any one of the so-called astronauts that you might get punched in the face, one can find videos of Buzz Aldrin punching people in the face when they suggest that the moon landing didn't happen. Uh, but once again, one can make so many uh, arguments to why it didn't happen, or to why they went to a different place, as Prabhupada sometimes suggested, that they might have gone to Rahu instead of the moon. Uh, that's a discussion for another time. Uh, and of course, one of the biggest assumptions or foundational principles of modern science is that uh, the universe is at its foundation is impersonal, more or less the Mayavadi conception that there is not consciousness at the foundational stages of the universe or the foundational level of the universe, but there are impersonal laws, the laws of nature, that give rise to consciousness. The Vedic conception is, of course, just the opposite, that they the foundational uh, state or the foundational level of the universe is personal, that it is comprised of consciousness and conscious entities, and that the material world, both the subtle material world of mind, intelligence, and false ego, and the gross material world, Mahabhutas and the Tanmantras, which connect the two, are all derived from consciousness, from a conscious living entity. Of course, ultimately from Krishna, uh, who is Swayam Bhagavan and the source of everything. And then even in this particular universe, the creation is done by Lord Brahma, not by some uh, explosion or quantum fluctuation, as people think the Big Bang is. The Big Bang is another one of these examples where if one actually looks at the evidence, the astronomical and cosmological evidence, one can see that there are issues with the theory. If anybody is interested in that, the book Vedic Cosmology and Astronomy by Sadaputta Prabhu has very nice sections on anomalous redshift and things like that. Where he basically shows that the evidence of the Big Bang, Hubble's law, and all of this stuff is not as ironclad as uh, as people would have you believe. So how does this state arise? How is it possible that a system which is supposedly based on empiricism, rational thought, looking at the evidence, leads to this dogmatic behavior? So if one looks at the Vedic analysis of epistemology, there are three, I think somebody on Zoom is unmuted. If one looks at the Vedic analysis of epistemology, then there are three pramans, three means of gaining evidence. There's, of course, pratyaksha, looking at or using the input from the senses in order to gain evidence, what in the Western world we might call empiricism. And then Anuman Praman, which is kind of logical deduction, which is what we might call rationalism. And of course, Shabda Praman. So science, the modern scientific worldview, purports to be based on the first two, Pratyaksha and Anuman. However, if one looks at what the actual system is, at what the actual way that things are being taught and things are being explained, then one realizes that in all cases, one must rely on Shabda Praman, hearing from authorized sources. Even in science, if we learn so many scientific facts and scientific theories throughout our science education, but there's no way that one could reperform all of the experiments that are done from all of the history of science. Even if one had the inclination, which most people don't, I assure you, you would get bored very quickly doing all of these things, just trying to repeat the experiments that have already been done. If one wanted to do every one, one, of course, does not have the time or the resources. Some of these experiments, of course, take giant particle accelerators or large amounts of radioactive material. And if you try to get your hands on either one of those. The United States government might have something to say about it. But so one has to rely on Shabda Praman. One has to hear from one's science teacher or one's professor that this is the situation, that this is the actual case. And even if two people are looking at one experiment, or even a set of experiments, the theory that they might come up with could be totally different. The philosophers of science call this value-laden observations. That when I look at an observation, I'm not just observing, but I am fitting it into a conceptual framework of a theory that I already hold. And it's only when that theory fails or fails too badly that I give up the theory, theoretically. Of course, as is commonly stated in scientific circles, the way to get new theories accepted is not to convince everybody. It's that you just have to wait for all of the proponents of the old theory to die. Because people are so entrenched in what they heard and what they built their careers on, that they will not listen to new theories much of the time. But in any case, there's still this question of Shabda Praman, of hearing from authorized sources. Then the question becomes, who is an authorized source? And the Vedic system, or the Vedic prescription, is to look at the character, to look at the activities of somebody and figure out if they are a good source of knowledge based on the guidance given by the scriptures. And we read in the first verses of Nectar of Instruction about the qualifications of somebody who is fit to make disciples all over the world. And we can see this person fits these characteristics, or the characteristics described in other shastras. So he is probably a safe person to listen to. He's probably an authorized source of knowledge. And of course, that person also has to be following an authorized source of knowledge. This is Guru Parampara. I was speaking earlier about self-evident principles. And in one sense, the self-evident principle of Vedic epistemology is Guru Parampara. That one hears from authorized sources, reaching all the way back to the source of everything, to the original person. And in this way, one is on sure footing. I've heard the point made before. So once again, Prabhupada in this purport makes the point of not going to the moon. And the point that I've heard made before is basically, are you going to believe Prabhupada or are you going to believe Richard Nixon? Because if one actually looks at the dates of all of the moon landings, they all happened during the Nixon presidency. Of course, Nixon is a known cheater. So are you going to believe him or believe Prabhupada is the argument that I've heard made before. And this is basically the idea of Guru Parampara. Who are you going to believe? And who are you going to basically accept as an authority? And in this pastime, we have the three great personalities mentioned in the purport: Priyavata, Narada Muni, and Swayambhuva Manu. And there's a discussion going on. Narada Muni is asking or is wanting Priyavata to stay renounced. Swayambhuva Manu is asking him to rule the universe. And then, of course, the matter is going to be settled by Lord Brahma, who is in this case, the Param Guru, and the head of the Sampradaya, the start of the Parampara system in this universe. And in this way, it is settled. So this is our process, is following Guru Parampara. We have such a nice opportunity, both in the forms of the many books that Prabhupada left behind, and of course, our own individual spiritual masters, to actually take up this process and come to the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond even the material universe, that any other source of knowledge cannot reach. If one wants to go beyond the reaches of the material energy, then the only way actually is Shabda Praman, by hearing from authorized sources and following the instructions that one hears from them. So that's all that I have. I think I've rambled on enough. Are there any comments, questions, additions, subtractions? It looks like Kaylee has her hand up.
Hare Krishna, Kalasvarupa, Prabhu. Really appreciate this class. It's nice to see your scientific, but also like spiritual mindset coming out.
Thank you.
So I just have a question on this last part that you were just saying about how we have to go beyond the material energy, the material existence. And so I was reading my mistake for not being able to quote or like even remember where I heard this from. But somewhere in the scriptures, I was reading about that we need to kind of, at some point, we even like transcend this. This is like really tough to say actually, because it's not recommended like this, but we have to even transcend like the rules and regulations, things that we might read in script, the Vedas, like the flowery words of the Vedas, right? But we have to understand them first, and then we can transcend. So is it the same kind of thing with the material existence? Can we really like transcend or go beyond the material existence if we don't even understand it first? Or can we just skip the understanding of the material existence and just transcend, rise above it? What are your thoughts on that?
We can skip it by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
So yeah, there's different processes for going back to Godhead. And for example, you mentioned like understanding the flowery words of the Vedas before going beyond them. That is kind of my understanding of what that means. I'd have to see the report itself to understand fully, but or maybe to give a full answer. But my understanding is that uh, that is basically, you go from the Karma Kanda platform to the Karma Yoga platform, and then eventually, hopefully, to the Bhakti Yoga platform. So it's not that one goes necessarily beyond all scriptures or all shastras, because we read in Bhagavatam and in other places that even the great self-realized souls read Bhagavatam. You read Bhagavatam before you're liberated and after you're liberated. So my understanding of what that means, in the case of understanding the Vedas, is that uh, it's specifically referring to the karmakanda activities, or to the karmic activities, occupational duties, sacrifices, things like that. And likewise with the understanding the material energy side of it, understanding the material nature. That is kind of I would take that to mean that a similar thing, except instead of karma kanda and karma yoga, it's jnana kanda and jnana yoga. The analytical study of material nature. One gets into Sankhya and things like that. Which of course one has to move beyond that platform by into bhakti yoga. But of course one doesn't have to get into all of these things to go back to Godhead. Really, all that one has to do is follow the orders of a bona fide spiritual master. Uh, Actually, the first question that I ever asked my Guru Maharaj uh, when I met him was, "How do I become a pure devotee?" And his answer was, perfectly follow somebody who is perfectly following. And that's basically just the way to go back to Godhead. One can get into all of these, other things like studying material nature minutely, or doing, one's occupational duties. If, for some service reason there's that, or for some, there's some need, maybe economic need. But the way to go back to Godhead is by following the instructions of the spiritual master. So hopefully that answers something.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a very, very nice response. And yeah, thank you for clearing the point also of, everybody should be reading the scriptures. I didn't mean to make it sound like we should not read them. But yeah, thank you so much for clearing those things up. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
thank you. Hare Krishna. We have about 7 minutes left. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, if not, then Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Wait, also, if we have a second, I know today is
Yes.
Srila Narottam Das appearance day. Do you have like any special relationship with him, or anything you can share with us about him?
I was not aware that it was his appearance day, but I'll try to say a few words just from memory. Of course, Narottam Das Thakur's songs are always very nice. This mood of humility, especially in trying to gain the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Actually, I remember hearing that uh, sometimes in uh, in the kirtans, when Lord Chaitanya was dancing, he would point towards the direction where Narottam Das Thakur took birth and would just repeatedly shout Narottam, Narottam. And because he's such a great personality, a resident of the spiritual world who came to the material world to help liberate all of the fallen living entities. I unfortunately did not prepare any details about his biographical knowledge or anything like that, so I cannot say too much. I don't know if any, in the 4 minutes we have left before the deity doors open, if any other elevated devotees want to add any insights about Narottam Das Thakur or any other topic.
Okay, Hare Krishna. I'm definitely not an elevated devotee, but I was reading about Narottam Das Thakur this morning, and something you mentioned his humility, and I just wanted to share something. I was reading about his humility and that he became really, when he went to go to Vrindavan, he became really attracted to Srila Jiva Goswami. And Srila Jiva Goswami was so humble that even though Narottam and also Shamananda Srinivas, they both wanted to take initiation from him, Jiva Goswami told them to take initiation from someone else. So he told Narottam Das to take initiation from Lokanath Das Goswami. And so because Narottam Das was a prince, he was born from a king family, like in royalty. And so he went to go ask Lokanath Das Goswami if he could take initiation from him. And Lokanath said the same thing, you can take initiation from any of these elevated Vaishnavas. I am nobody. And so then Narottam Das was not satisfied with this. So he would go to where Lokanath Das Goswami was, passing stool, and he would clean it every day in the forest, because Lokanath Das Goswami was living in an ashram that was in the forest. And so Narottam would go so humbly and just clean it without Lokanath Das Goswami even knowing. And one day Lokanath Das Goswami caught him, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And Narottam Das said, "I just want to take shelter from you." And he just started crying. And then Lokanath Das Goswami gave him, a mantra, and then he told him to just sit here and listen, just listen. Like you also said, the response to the answer is just hearing and, taking the advice and of the seniors and the acharyas and guru, etc. And so Lokanath Das Goswami told this to Narottam, and he did just that. He did exactly what both Jiva Goswami, who he was most interested in, and also who he was told to take initiation from, Lokanath Das Goswami. So that was really moving for me to hear. So yeah, thanks for mentioning his humility. It's really sweet.
Thank you for the additional details. We have about 1 minute, assuming everything is on time.
In Krishna Lila, Narottam Das Thakur was Champaka Manjari, who was an assistant of Rupa Manjari. Narottam Das was actually the son of a king, Krishnananda Nanda Datta. But of course, he became very renounced. He was a lifelong brahmachari and said to be a Rutidara. He was able to remember anything that he heard. Whatever he heard, he would remember everything, every detail of everything that he heard. What else can be said? Of course, he was the only disciple of Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami was reluctant to accept disciples, but Narottam Das took special pains to get the mercy of Lokanath Goswami. As Kaylee was describing, took it upon himself to clean that area where he would relieve himself. What else can be said? He was instrumental in transporting the writings of the Goswamis from Vrindavan to Bengal and elsewhere. So he was one of the early book distributors. So did not. I haven't recently read anything of. That's like what I'm trying to recall. Drawing a blank. Yeah. I don't know if we'll be able to get his mercy on us. Thank you for a nice class. Hare Krishna. I always enjoy your perspectives. This was
Thank you, Prabhu.
a nice topic for you with your scientific background. It was interesting.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your kind words, Prabhu. I guess if there aren't any other comments, I guess we'll finish up here. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. What's your name? Kalasvarupa. Kalasvarupa. Oh, what did you do? Your new almost. You just yes. From It's kind of travel around, but mostly Philadelphia.
You're in Philly,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, did no pickup. So you know Harry Ashford.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I was part of the launch orange.
Oh, yes, yeah, good. So now you're here now.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, there's other movies from there, right, that are here.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't really with the Montreal. Is he still around? It was like why? Him and his wife, they moved here. They had a couple of kids too.
Joshua.
Yeah, are these still around?
They lived at State College.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, they were friendly with Moss Lounge.
Yeah,
That's
very
right. What's the number?
So it's if it over all the rest of the coming mornings, and then we just close it.
Yeah, because building does at the same time.
Seems so.
Yeah.
I mean,
20. Yeah.
maybe so they love people.
They come here.
They come here.
Yeah, I think it's still.
He's here. He lives here.
I mean, they have to watch on site. But he is close by.
Yeah, he has a house.
Yeah.
It's 2 houses. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you notice this talk is open if I could go on?
It is, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, very. It's well, it's mostly finals. So each column and then. So that being more joint small. The silence.
Yeah. Okay, can I still go in?
It's,
Okay.
I don't know, it's a lot.
It's a culture.
It is.
My younger than moderately sick. So,
It should be.
let's see, we're coming tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, like, they're putting the backdrop up. It should be
Oh,
very soon. Okay. But that means like, the deities are finished being dressed.
yeah, right. Is that the final piece?
Basically, yeah.
Yes.
And if they're too far behind, they would have just told us to do the butcher first.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. Yeah, it's probably on half hour. Maybe it'll be a little more now. I think should have put some phone drop off now. Do you still get lots of guests in the winter time?
I don't know what this is on,
Yes.
but. Yeah, we do still.
I saw that like new apartments were not apartments.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So what is it like? I remember the old temple building, the second floor was sustaining on the bathrooms, and the third floor was used to stand. What is it all about now?
That's the men's option. So that's the third floor.
That's the men's machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things have changed so much. You used to go there's the voting for the fair, which to the level. He used to do Camp Krishna's here, but that was really so much fun. We used to live in North Yorkshire, they have a stage, put up a stage, and there's a girl behind that. That really used to be, she used to sing with the parents back. And my mom would come, and she'd cook in this kitchen, sing the machine for all the kids. My mom and two other moms would come to cook for everyone, but they were so much fun. There's so many memories of Beats and Evergreen. Friends really close to them, sister of my house used to come on. When he was living in.
Figure out his own agree. It's happening.
Oh.
Jaya Radha Rama Radha Sri Radha. Jaya Lalita Shakya Lalita Shakya Radha. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya. Guru Charana Bhajan Kevala Ti Sadman Shri Guru Charana Bhajan Kevala Ti Sadman Krishna Prasthaya Nuda Bhakti Vedanta Sam
Krishna Krishna.
Vidanta
Yeah.
No charge, or the. Friends, like, how should you get on the windows in on the share, make a hard shoes on the robot, bring the key. Fishy rock, or should go, now sound, from getting over on key. Trigonometon key, Mark down key, Gangamai key, Yamunamai key. Back to David key. To us David key. To not to go to Vashon Render key. I know some Kirtan key. Some of it walk Render key. The entire working on the. All worth some devotees. All worth some devotees. All worth some devotees. All worth the Shri Guru and Shri Maranga. All worth the Shri Prabhupada.
Think of a spiritual master. His grace when we cross the ocean of the tree of suffering. My consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. With him ecstatic emanates like maintenance is destroyed. They made his scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean master, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of all the devotees. O Master, please be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet.
As divine grace leads to Bhakti Danta Swami Prabhupada.